Hey guys, how's it going? It's Jay from Sony Alpha Lab, and what I got in this review is the Sigma 105 f1.4 DG art lens, which is an absolute beast of a lens. So 105mm f1.4, hence the size of this sucker. I tested this lens on the Sony A7R IV, which is a 61 megapixel mirrorless full frame camera, and I really put it through its paces. And the reason why I wanted to try this lens in particular is because my children just turned 6 and 10, and I really wanted to get those like monumental portraits of them. So I wanted to get a really killer setup. So I went for the A7R IV, and I went with this guy. Well, let's just get right into it. All right, guys, so as you can see, this lens comes with this awesome pouch. Nice lens pouch. It's really big and it's, very nicely padded. It has this handle on here so you can shoulder strap and easily carry it. And then you open it up and there is the beast. Now, I actually have a Sony cap on there. It actually comes with one that says Sigma, obviously. I just put that on there. Notice the size of this thing. It is ridiculously huge. It has a 105mm filter thread on the front. It has this pinch style lens cap. And right there you can see the glass. Huge. And it's got this lens hood here. You just unscrew this. The lens hood comes off. You just got to loosen it enough. Comes off like that, and then you can turn it around, put it on, and then you just tighten this screw. You don't over tighten it. You just tighten it till it's like snug, and then that's the lens cap. Now you also have a autofocus manual focus switch here. You have your focus meter here. Will tell you where your focus is. You have your focus ring here, which feels really nice. And then, of course, you have the tripod collar, which is fantastic. You can loosen that up, and then you can turn it however you like. It's got preset little notches there, which is also a nice feature. And this is good if you're holding it on a tripod. You can just put your tripod plate on the bottom and then bolt it right to your tripod, and you won't have to hold this heavy load. Also great for monopods and things like that, of course. Now, this lens has 17 elements in 12 groups. It has a minimum focus distance of 3.28 feet or approximately 1 meter. It's got a 9-blade aperture, rounded, and it weighs in at about 3.6 pounds or 1.6 kilograms. And the aperture actually goes from f1.4 to f16. So like I said, I was testing this up on the Sony A7R IV, as you can see here. And that's what she looks like on the A7R IV. I'll just level that off a little bit. And you can see right there, that's what it looks like. And this setup feels pretty good. It's definitely a heavy lens. I just used the tripod collar to hold it. And that's pretty much how she works. So I got a ton of real world photos. I also did a lot of lab testing, so you can see the baseline, the lab testing. The quality is very, very good. And the real world photos are where it's at though. So let's get on with the sample photos and I will show you just how good this thing does in the real world and the lab. All right, so here we are in the lab and I'm using Adobe Lightroom for this. And first thing I want to show you here is up on the top left, we have the EXIF data. So you can always see the aperture information and other camera information, just so you know as I'm going through these photos. So over here on the right, I just want to show you what happens when I check the lens profile correction. And you can see here, when I turn it on, the vignette, which is the darkening of the corners, brightens up a little bit. But notice how the distortion adjusts very, very slightly. It's very little amount of distortion on this lens, which is absolutely remarkable in my opinion, because it's just a super high quality performing optic. Now, just to prove my point further, look at the sharpness here. This is at f1.4 and it's razor blade sharp. There's no purple fringing, nothing. You can see the detail on these crayons is absolutely astounding. Really, really sharp lens all the way in the corner, as you can see here. And I'll go up to this corner. You can see the sharpness is excellent, even all the way in the corners on the 61 megapixel full frame A7R. So this lens really holds up with the resolution, and corner sharpness is fantastic. Now you do get a little bit of the, oblong shape bokeh balls here, wide open at f1.4 in the corner areas, but I actually like the way that looks. It actually seems to draw your eye in more, as you will see in the real world photos. Now, if I just stop her down here to f1.8, you can see the bokeh balls go full round pretty much, and that little ovaling phenomenon, whatever you want to call it, goes away. Now, if I zoom in here at f1.8, obviously this is going to be extremely sharp, just like it was at f1.4, but it does actually tack up even sharper, you know, so there is levels to the sharpness. f1.4 is ridiculously good in my opinion, but f1.8 is a little bit sharper, and you do notice that in the corners here, it is just that little bit more sharp. And if I switch to f2.8, you can see now the corner is, I would say, tack sharp now at this point in the corner. And the dollar bills still look fantastic. Obviously the crayons and stuff still looks great. And now the depth of field is really being canceled out. So the string here it sticks out a little bit from the wood, and the depth of field is so narrow on a lens like this at f1.4 105mm that the front of this rope will actually be a little bit soft due to the depth of field. And same thing with this plastic here. So when you stop down to like f2.8, all that gets canceled out and it actually looks sharper, but it was really sharp at f1.4 on the dollar bill, which is what I focused on. Now notice here the bokeh balls, they are starting to octagon a little bit. I'm just going back to f2.8 here. You can see here they're still pretty round. There is a little bit of octagoning, but not much. Then if we go to f4, you can see that octagoning really starts to come into play. And here is f5.6. Again, just a little bit of octagoning, not too bad. And also you can see the quarter is out of focus because of the depth of field. And f5.6, of course, is going to be ridiculously sharp. And here's f8. And again, the sharpness is just absolutely phenomenal on this lens. And let me just show you the bokeh balls here. See the light in the background. And here's f11. And here's f16. So you can see even at f16 with the diffraction phenomenon, the sharpness is still excellent. It did soften up a little bit compared to f5.6 and f8, but it's still very, very sharp in my opinion via the Sony A7R IV. All right, let's go check out some minimum focus distance tests just so you can see that. And again, the minimum focus distance is 3.2 feet approximately, or about 1 meter. And this is as close as I could get to the quarter. And if I zoom in here, you could see the sharpness is pretty darn good. It was hard to get it exactly right just because the depth of field is so razor thin, narrow, but it's still very sharp on the quarter. And the sharpness test was really the dollar bill test anyway, so refer to that for, like, you know, actual sharpness. This is more of a minimum focus distance test just so you can see what kind of magnification you can get with a lens like this and a better look at the bokeh ball rendering. So I'm just going to go through the aperture run here. Here's f1.8, here's f2.8, here's f4, f5.6, f8, f11, and f16. And again, here's f1.4. So you can see the bokeh balls are absolutely awesome. They render so well. All right, so moving on to the real world photos. As you can see, I took over 540 shots, but I have it narrowed down to, you know, I just highlighted some of the good ones. If you guys want to see all these photos, please go to my website to the full review and you can check out the sample photos in more detail. But for, you know, just the fact I don't want this video to be too long, I'm just going to go to the 3-star photos and show you what those look like. So let me just go into development mode here. And now this first image here, if you look up here on the top left again, you'll see all the EXIF data. Now I had the camera set to JPEG mode for this particular shot, so the colors are particularly a little bit too orange. But again, I just wanted to take a quick test photo and to see what this lens can do right when I opened it up out of the box. And I can tell you I'm absolutely blown away by the sharpness and quality. Just look at this image of Layla. Absolutely remarkable quality in my opinion. You can see the tripod and the window blind in the background all blurred out. Looks fantastic. Here's just another angle. And again, just exceptionally good quality. Super impressed with this lens. Now, I did get some better portraits of Layla, as you will see in a couple minutes. Now, here's just an image of a beer with the glass in the background and the lights. so you can see what kind of killer depth of field play you can get, and out of focus bokeh rendering. That was taken in JPEG as well, same as this image here. Now I switched to raw quality, so the images are going to look a little more flat in color and contrast, but that's how I like it. I like to work the files in Lightroom myself. Now I apologize for the laptop. The fan is starting to kick up because these A7R 4 files are gigantic, and it just taxes my computer while doing a screen recording, which is I'm also doing while I'm doing this here. Now here's one of Jace on his scooter, and you can just see that depth of field, and the background rendering is just awesome. And if I zoom in here, you can see just how killer the sharpness is as well. Here's another one of Jace, and again, just look at the sharpness and clarity. Absolutely killer on this lens, and the background is, you know, just amazing. That 3D pop you get. Here's one of Layla on the scooter. Now this was a moving subject, and it was able to track Layla coming towards me at a reasonable speed, same as Jace coming towards me on the scooter in autofocus continuous mode. It was able to track pretty well at a decent speed, but high speed moving subjects, this lens is not really that good for that as far as the focus motor goes, but it did do a pretty good job at lower speeds. It was able to track my kids quite well, and I was happy about that. Here's another one of Jace. Here's one of Layla looking up at the sky. Just another couple of shots here. Now here's another one. Let me just zoom in here so you can see again the sharpness and clarity is fantastic on this lens. Now this one I did edit a bit. I brought it into Photoshop, and this is one of the best portraits I've gotten of Jace ever, in my opinion. There's just something about that face that, you know, I can see his personality coming out. You know, I just absolutely love this image. I'm going to get this printed, and I'm going to hang it in my house. It's really, really good, in my opinion, and I just love the way that this renders. And, you know, if you knew my son, and I was asking him to make like a tough guy face, and he just put the eyebrows down, and it just absolutely came out so good. I love this photo. Couldn't have done it without this killer lens and camera combo. So sometimes you just have to get a specialty lens to get killer shots like this, and this is one of those lenses. It's just a specialty lens, optimized in my opinion for portraits and stuff, as you are seeing here. Now obviously you can use the lens for pretty much anything, but portraits in particular, I think this lens shines. Now here I brought him kids into the woods, and I wanted to show you that depth of field play you can get when you have them on a trail or something like that. And these are raw files, so they look pretty flat at the moment. I could obviously jack up the colors and make them much more, you know, make them pop a lot more with editing, but I wanted to show you what they looked like straight off the camera. Now here's my friend Abraham. I let him borrow one of my Canon lenses, and he was really excited to try it out on his Rebel as we were just playing around here. Here's another one of Layla, and I wanted to take this photo to include more foreground so you can see just how awesome that foreground renders out of focus. And I focused on Layla, and you could see Jace is out of focus, and he's only about 10 feet behind her or so. And here's just a quick snapshot. It's nothing good. I didn't really get a good pose or anything, but again, look at that amazing depth of field play you can get. And here's just a shot of a mushroom right next to my house, as a matter of fact. And here's Jace learning to master the bicycle. He's got it down now, and you can see here he's pretty proud of himself, as he should be, in my opinion. He was a little bit scared of balancing on that bike. Check out this unbelievably awesome Corvette my friend Mark has. He wanted me to take some pictures of it, and the Sigma 105mm just created that amazing depth of field layering effect, which yields you this incredible 3D pop that you're seeing in this image here. He's thinking about getting rid of this Corvette at some point, so I just wanted to get some pictures quick with it. And here's one where I put the grass in the foreground and really wanted to illustrate that layering depth of field effect you can get. Here's another image, and here's just one of Mark. I'll zoom in here so you can see the detail. Just look at that sharpness on his beard and stuff. It's unbelievable, right? And you can see the depth of field is so narrow, you could see his shirt collar and everything is out of focus here because it's so razor blade thin, that depth of field. Now here's another image. This is actually an HDR, so I combined 3 separate exposures and edited it to render a result like this. And that's why it looks a little bit surreal, because it's an HDR photo. Now here's just a shot taken at sunset of this killer beer that Equilibrium put out, and I put the sun right behind the glass and the beer can here so you can see just that cool illumination effect. And obviously I focused on the can, so the glass of beer is out of focus slightly, which creates this, you know, again, this nice 3D look. And you can see here you got a little bit of lens flare coming out, which adds to the scene a little bit in my opinion. Now my brother is actually watching this dog for a little while, so I went down and took a couple of pictures, and it was pretty hard to get the dog in focus because it's always moving. But once I switched the camera to continuous autofocus, it did a much better job. And here's just a dog shaking after he got a drink. Look at this slobber, just spit flying everywhere. What a cool dog. Dog weighs like almost 200 pounds. Now here's Charlie. Charlie was running towards me with the Frisbee here, and you can see excellent sharpness, clarity, and contrast. Now here's one of Chippy, and you can see here Chippy is also very, very sharp, and the colors, contrast, and depth of field are all awesome. Just another angle. Now here's a couple of portraits of Layla. We actually planned this out a little bit, and we tried to do our best with the outfit and the posing and everything like that, and I was very happy with this result. Now she's just been getting into skateboarding lately, so of course when she's riding the skateboard she has all the pads and the helmet and all that, but for this we just wanted to take a couple of fun pictures, and this is what it looked like when I was done editing it. Now here is the straight off the camera version. So you could see there I just darkened the background and stuff. And here's another one. I particularly like this pose. And here's the unedited version, so I didn't really do too much. But again, just look at the depth of field. You could see the shoe here. Obviously I focused on her eyes, so that's what's in focus, but you can see the shoe in the foreground is out of focus, and the, you know, just the rendering here is absolutely awesome. Even though this fence is in the background and arguably distracting, because it's so out of focus, it really just helps frame the scene in my opinion, and creates a better portrait when it comes to that depth of field play. Here's just another one. And then here's just a quick snapshot of Jace playing on the slide with the super bright background here. So I wanted to show you the high contrast, you know, background, and how there's like no fringing or anything like that around the edges here, which you may see with cheaper optical lenses. And here's just another one so you can see the depth of field. So that is about it for the real world photos, but like I was saying, on my website I will have a lot more sample photos if you want to check those out. And now I just wanted to go over a little bit of the sample video that I took with this, showing you some transitions, and also how the camera and lens did struggle a little bit when using different focus modes. So let me show you that, and then we will wrap up this review. Alright, so here's just some of me standing in front of the camera so you can watch how it responds using the facial recognition technology and tracking a moving subject. It works pretty darn good in my opinion, so you can definitely use this lens for video if you want to, and you know, you can rest assured it'll do a pretty darn good job and get that killer background depth of field play that you may or may not be looking for, depending on your needs, you know? Alright, so here's just a couple focus transition tests in video mode, 4K quality, so you can see just how this lens did. Now it does have a little bit of like breathing or something. I'm not exactly sure what the proper term is, but it hunts around just a little bit before locking on each item. Sometimes it works a little bit better than others, but overall, just using the touch to focus, I thought the lens performed really well. And it did struggle a little bit here trying to go back to the picture in the background, as you'll see in a second. Like right now I'm trying to go back to the picture in the background and it's not working, so I just picked a different spot on the photo and then it finally got it. It locks on the face there, and then the next press it doesn't lock. See that I got the green box and now I got blurry. Sorry I don't have a live model here, but I don't have the kids today. So you can see it locks on there. Now watch, when I change the focus from AFS to continuous, now it just tracks the eye. See that? And you can just hold it down and you get a sharp shot every time. So I had much better luck using AFC mode, which is continuous autofocus, when shooting, you know, still subjects that are human. The IAF works great and it worked good in video as well, but when I had it set to single shot AF, which you can change right here in the function menu, that's where I had an issue, but pretty much only with human subjects and faces for whatever reason. I don't know why that is. I updated the camera firmware and it still does it. Just so you know, I'm using the Sony A7R IV. So you're going to have better luck using continuous autofocus when shooting moving subjects and people in particular. Alright guys, so as you can see, the Sigma 105mm f1.4 lens is absolutely amazing. You can get killer portraits, unbelievable separation from the background, which results in this incredible 3D pop, like that you know, the images just pop off the screen. And that's what you get with a telephoto super fast aperture lens. Now, $1,600 is what it costs, and I think it's worth every penny. As you saw, the focus does not work as good as I would have hoped. I had better luck using continuous autofocus mode. When I was in single shot mode, it would focus on the subject, and then it would, when I wanted to focus again, it would like miss and it would focus on something else, and then it would focus on the subject again the second time. I did repeated testing. I updated the firmware on the Sony A7R IV, and that's basically just how it performed. So in some cases I actually switched it to manual focus because that was really annoying me at times, especially when I was at a tough angle, and that worked out great. But like I said, in single shot mode, that did happen. It is what it is. Honestly, it wasn't that big of a deal, and I still didn't think it was a deal breaker because the lens is absolutely unbelievable. And even though it did do that, it didn't really do that in continuous autofocus mode, so you could always use that mode if you wanted to. But I prefer using single shot autofocus mode when I'm taking portraits. I like to do one at a time. That's just how I like to do it. That seems to be my workflow. So at the end of the day, I still highly recommend the lens. I got some of the best portraits I've gotten of my kids in a long time, and that's really what it's all about. And the price point is totally reasonable. $1,600 for portrait quality like that is an absolute steal in my opinion. And if you're a professional photographer, you're doing high-end portrait photography and things like that, this is a really good lens to consider in my opinion. So I really hope you got what you were looking for out of this review, and please do me a favor and give me a thumbs up if you thought this review was helpful, and also be sure to subscribe if you want to see more reviews like this. And below the video in the description area you will find all the links to the gear I used for the review, recommended accessories, and so forth. So that is about it. I will catch up with you guys next time. Have a great day. Take care.